Welcome back to my channel. My name's Eliza, and in today's video I'm going to talk about all my whips. And I'm standing right from my very bright window, and that's why I'm squinting a little bit. Okay, so I've only finished one thing recently. And I have a bunch of other things to talk about. Mostly whips, actually pretty much only whips related to knitting. I could tell you about this sweater that I'm wearing. This is my ranunculus sweater. Can you see the beautiful texture? It looks like it's hard to see in the camera, but it's there. I knit this, probably took me like 3 months to knit it because I did all the fun yoke work, and then the body, I was just like, oh, I don't want to knit the body. And then the sleeves, I didn't want to knit those either. It took me probably like a week to do all the fun stuff, and then like two and a half months to do the rest. But it came out really good. I decided to use chunky yarn and bigger needles. I ended up using like size 13 needles, so pretty big, but this is pretty bulky yarn. This is the Ella Ray Eco Tweed chunky yarn. And I ended up getting this because I was working at a yarn store and I was like looking at patterns on Ravelry. And I saw this one picture of the ranunculus that was in like a chunky version, and I was like, okay, I want to make my ranunculus in the chunky version. So then I just like walked around the yarn store that I was in and picked something out, which was this gray yarn. And I don't know that I've made a lot of gray sweaters before, maybe one or two, but I'm loving a gray sweater. It goes with everything. This is what I wore to the dentist today, my ranunculus sweater. The other finished object I have is an Oslo hat. It's green, and I made it for my boyfriend because his birthday is coming up, and I was thinking of embroidering on it or doing like a duplicate stitch on it. And I started to do like a stitch fiddle drawing of a crab, but my chart is huge, and so I like put stitch markers on this. Like there's one right here, and then there's one, the other one's like all the way back here, to show like how much space I would need to put that crab on this hat, and it's so big. So the stitch fiddle illustration that I did like looks pretty cool, but it's just like too big. He would just have like a giant crab on the side of his head, and that's not really the vision that I had. So I think I'm gonna save this for something else because it's kind of cool. I made it purple because I wanted it to be a Dungeness crab, pre-cooked. So it shouldn't be red because I wanted it to be a crab like in the sea, in the ocean, not a crab on the dinner table. This hopefully will get some embroidery, and then I'll show you what ends up happening with this, because that was the vision. It wasn't to give him like a plain old hat, a really nice cozy soft hat in a beautiful pattern. This is merino cashmere yarn, so it's super soft and cozy, but I wanted to put some embroidery on it just to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more special. I thought it would be super cute to do some like secret embroidery on the fold that says like happy birthday, you know, something that only he would know is there. I think that would be super cute. But that's my only finished object currently. And it took a long time. It took so long because again, like I wanted to make an Oslo hat. This is my second one that I've made. The first one I made was with Hedgehog Fibers Tweedy, and they're like really cute hats, and I love the pattern. It has like this, you do like a double brim, and then you do like a bunch of knit stitches that end up being purl stitches, so then you can like flip the brim and it kind of holds it in place. So it's a really cool design, but it's a lot of knitting stockinette in the round on tiny needles, so it does take a while. And I love to keep my mind engaged with things other than stockinette. So that's my one finished object. And then I have some whips. My first whip is, I'm making a little short sleeve cardigan, and I'm gonna do a full video about the process making this because it's inspired by like a retail, like a sweater I saw online, and I want to copy it pretty much. So the yarn I'm using for that is this Prairie Spun DK yarn, which I purchased from Dharma Trading Company in San Rafael, California. This color is called Clover. It's 256 yards per skein, and it's 100% wool. So I got 2 of these, hoping that that would be enough to make my little cardigan. And this is as far as I've gotten. I started it yesterday, so this is this is pretty good for having started it yesterday and then like knit a bunch of other things and done a bunch of other things. So yeah, we got through some short rows, and now I'm just working the shoulders for a while. But it's been fun so far, and I'm hoping it ends up looking like the inspiration, because the inspiration's like pretty simple. So I think I can do it. I hope I can do it. And then I was tempted because like this is in a green yarn, and then this hat was green, and so I colored up that crab with like a green background. So like, what if I put that crab on a sweater? It would definitely change the vibe of the sweater from like what I was going for, which was simple, solid, short sleeve cardigan that I could wear like to work or over a dress or something. But if I put a big crab on it, then it's like a short sleeve cardigan with a crab on it, and it would change the vibe a little bit. It might be cool, but it might be different. Another whip that is pretty much at the same stage as the green whip is the puzzle sweater, which is newly released on Ravelry, so I'll link it down below. I started doing the back yoke. I bought the pattern like right after it was released, like a week or two ago, because I thought it was so cool. So this is what I have so far. This is the back yoke, like I said. Basically you start out with a little bit, and then you do a bunch of short rows to grow the back. So I'm still working on it. I'm like maybe halfway through the chart, but it's fun. It's fun to watch it grow. And I was using the same yarn on both sides here, and then I decided to switch to a dark brown because I saw in some of the sample pictures some versions had like these two as different colors. So I kind of like that better than having them the same with this like stripe down the middle. Also, this yarn is 100% wool. It's the, I think it's the Universal Deluxe Worsted yarn. And in my last studio space, I guess there were moths because something ate through my ball of yarn. And you can tell because there are like these little dots, little black dots, which I was told are evidence of a creature in your yarn. I don't know if you could tell, but it's chewed up right there. Probably not. And there's just like bug dander, I guess, in the yarn. So I was knitting with that, and I would be knitting, and then I'd be like, oh, my yarn, it ended because it was like broken in many places. But I'm gonna keep going with it because it's still usable yarn. It's just someone like chewed through the middle of it. Yeah, so this one I'm kind of like, this is not gonna be done for a while. I'm not really prioritizing this, but I do have a bunch of fun brown tones that I'm using for it. So I think I'll make a whole video just about the puzzle sweater in the future, and I'll show you all my fun brown yarns. I was really excited to make this puzzle sweater because it was a worsted weight pattern. It looked like a great stash buster sweater, and I do have a bunch of worsted weight yarn. And apparently I had a bunch in brown, which was great because I didn't really want to make something too colorful. I wanted to stick with a palette of similar colors and tones, and I did really like the sample puzzle sweater, which was like blue tones, and I had some blue but not enough, but I had a bunch of brown. And actually this fuzzy yarn here, this was from an H&M sweater that I got from a thrift store, which had like a hole in it, and I unraveled because it had a really soft yarn. Like normally I wouldn't really want like an H&M sweater for its yarn, but it was like an alpaca wool blend with just a little bit of polyamide, so I got it for the yarn. And manufactured sweaters are kind of hard to unravel. Like you really got to search for the end of those sweaters, and half the time like you cut through the linking seam, like the seams where like the armholes and the neck is attached, and then you cut through like the yarn and you end up, I don't know, it's just challenging, but sometimes it works, but usually it takes a really long time. And manufactured yarn is kind of funny. Like if you look at this yarn, so I'm holding it with a lace weight mohair, which is that right there, but alone it's like 2 strands of this like very bouncy, or it's 3 strands of this really, really bouncy, lightweight yarn. It definitely has some structure to it, but really not that much. Like if I were to pull this very forcefully, it would definitely rip in half. So I don't know what that says about the quality of the sweater. I just thought it was interesting that the yarn didn't have that much integrity to it. I don't know. But you know, manufacturing versus making things yourself, you know, I would imagine that yarn like this, 100% wool, worsted weight, this would be like kind of a chunky yarn for a manufactured sweater, would probably be really expensive. So it makes sense. Okay, I do have another whip, but it's in the other room, so I'm going to show you some yarn that I purchased the other day. This is the yarn. When I went to Dharma Trading Company in San Rafael and I got this, I also got these. So a couple weeks ago, I was on Instagram and I follow Boyland Knitworks, Caitlin Hunter, and Caitlin Hunter posted that she was doing a test call on Ravelry for the halibut cardigan. And I was like, what? Halibut cardigan? And so I went on Ravelry and I like really searched for it because I had no idea where the test knitting forums were. And turns out they're in the forums section, the community section, which I never go to on Ravelry. And I found it. I did apply. I did not get it, probably because I didn't really give that much information. I just commented and I was like, I want to test for this size. And then I read it again and I realized I should have been like, I've tested for other people before, I have a public Instagram, blah, 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 blah. But it's okay, it's for the best because I already have a bunch of whips going on. But because I was applying for that test knit, I was trying to figure out what size to test the knit. And I know that my boyfriend wanted a halibut sweater, and so I showed it to him and I said, do you want me to make you this cardigan in your size if I'm accepted to test the pattern? He said no. He wanted the pullover version. So I applied to test it in my size, and then I told him that I would make him the pullover for his birthday. That's not gonna happen. His birthday is in like 2 weeks. So I did already tell him that it's not gonna happen. I said hopefully by early fall he would have his halibut sweater. I did make him a halibut hat during the winter. Let me get it. This is the halibut hat that I made him with some modifications. So I actually tried to make this with an Oslo hat inspired fold back here. So if he was wearing it that way, which he doesn't, it would look more like, it's not gonna stay because he wears it the other way, so it's like it wants to go the other way. But it would have been like this. But he wears it like this. So I did this with the blue with the intention to go on the inside. I literally just did that because I was worried I would run out of yarn, but it looks nice that way. It has the pearl rose, but that's fine. They blend in with the base color. And then it goes into the halibut pattern. And this is the Ariado yarn by Plymouth, I think. Yeah, Plymouth Ariado yarn. And he really loves this hat. And so when I told him I was going to make him a halibut sweater, I said, what color do you want it to be? And he said, can you just make it like the hat? So that's what I got at Dharma the other day. They only had 2 of these, and I don't think that's enough. I think I'm going to have to find some more of the indigo color, but I just bought them because I was going to have to buy them somewhere else eventually. And they had the colors, so this one and then the leftovers that I have from knitting this hat should be enough for the color work portion. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to need another one or maybe 2 more of these indigo colors. The light blue color is called Light Denim. And I really like this yarn. I think it's so soft and it's really fun to knit with. So that's what I got the other day. These are my only yarn purchases lately. I did go to Texas and New Mexico recently, and I was like, I'm gonna go to some local yarn stores. I'm gonna get some Texas yarn and some New Mexico yarn, and they didn't really have any yarn stores where I was. So that didn't happen. I didn't buy anything, but it's for the best because I have a lot of other knitting plans and I don't need to be buying more yarn. I don't have a studio anymore, so my apartment is full of yarn. Okay, and then my final whip, which I think I talked about in my last video, is the Esther sweater jacket. I think it's called the Esther jacket by Petite Knit. It's almost done. We got the body, we got one sleeve. The plackets are done, they're there. They're hiding, but they're there. And I'm just working on the other sleeve. Here's the back. It fits pretty well. The sleeve did end up a little bit long, but that's fine. I also ended up using a bulkier yarn for that than the recommended yarn. So the recommended, I don't actually know what it is, and I don't have it open right now. But it's not bulky. I don't think it, okay, let me just look. I mean, what if it is bulky? Let's see. So the recommended is fingering plus DK equals Aran weight. So pretty close. I'm doing chunky weight. And the needle size recommended is 7 and 8, and I'm doing 9 and 10. So my body was knit on size 10, trims, etc. were knit with size 9. And I did that because I had knit the Mimi sweater by Junko Okamoto and I didn't like it, and I had a bunch of that yarn, so I unraveled it and made the Esther jacket. And it worked out pretty well. It was really simple to convert it to that larger gauge. I think I just knit a size small, and I knit the body, the front and the back body as instructed, same stitch counts, and then I had to modify for the plackets and the sleeves because I think I had less space than you would have if you knit it in the correct size and gauge. So I had to pick up less stitches around the armhole and then like modify that based on the instructions, because she has you put the like Esther stitch motif down the center of the arm. So that was really simple to convert. And then the plackets, I had way less stitches for the plackets. So it was a little bit confusing to figure out where to put the buttonholes, but I think it ended up working out just fine. I did it in kind of a, I like tried to do it with math, and I put my stitch markers on to notate where the buttonholes would be, and then I kind of determined where I actually wanted them to be and moved them around, and then like made sure I had an even number between them. So I had to mess around a little bit with the button placement. It definitely would be easier if you do what they recommend in the pattern. But that pattern is actually, it's really fun. I was knitting in the car when I was in Texas, and so I was really trying to look at my iPad to look at the chart, and it was like really frustrating to like look at my iPad and cross off a row and then knit a row and then cross off a row in the car. So I challenged myself to try to remember the pattern, which is pretty simple because you're basically knitting like moss stitch triangles and like half triangles, diamonds on the side. So it is pretty easy to learn the pattern if you prefer to do it that way. At least for the sleeves. I don't know about the body. I didn't do it on the body because you do have these big sections of moss stitch like under on the side body. But I'm sure you could do it there too. I don't know. This pattern was rated like a 5 out of 5 difficulty. I thought it was a very well written pattern and easy to understand. I didn't have any issues. I don't know why it was 5 out of 5 difficulty, but maybe I did something wrong. No, I don't know. I thought it was pretty simple. I think once you get the hang of the pattern and like the moss stitch, which is really easy, it's just knits and purls, then it's a pretty self-explanatory project. I did notice some tightness around the shoulders when I was increasing for the shoulders, but I think it kind of works itself out once your body is in the sweater, and we'll see how that changes after I block it too. Because it is like, it's kind of like right now, so I'm hoping when I block it, it'll like relax. That's it for my whips and my finished object and my acquisitions. Those are my 3 topics for my podcast usually. Other than that, non-knitting related, I've been watching a lot of X-Files while I knit. I'm super into the X-Files. I'm about halfway through the 3rd season, and season 1 was like so good. I love the way Scully dresses. I wish that my office was a little less casual, so it wouldn't be weird if I like showed up dressed like Scully to work. I think if I did that, people would definitely be like, whoa, nice blazer. But Scully's pretty cool. I'm definitely like fangirling over Scully as I watch the X-Files. And then for literature, I've been reading a lot of Karen Slaughter books, which are like thriller, like mystery novels. I'm reading the Grant County series right now. I'm on the 2nd book, which is called Kiss Cut. Her books are kind of graphic, and they have like very brutal crimes so far, usually against women, but it's really like captivating mystery thriller books, so I'm into it. I also read her book Pretty Girls and False Witness. I really liked False Witness, and then I think I read another one. Oh, I read The Good Daughter, which was also really good. That's all I'm doing right now. Reading scary books, watching scary TV, kind of scary, and knitting, trying to finish some projects. Let me know what you're knitting on lately, what TV you're watching, what books you're reading. Some people can read books while they knit. I wish I could do that. I would read way more books, but I just am too afraid to not look at my knitting. Alright, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!